Hello, my name is Becky Allen. I'm a BSL interpreter for the Royal Shakespeare Company, and I have interpreted the play The Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice will be broadcast to schools on the 21st of April. I'm here now to provide some information which we hope will be of support when watching the play. First of all, I'm going to go through the characters in the play. I'm going to show you a photo of each character, fingerspell their name, and then show you their sign names. Here goes. Antonio, and here's his sign name. Bassanio, and his sign name. Portia, and her sign name. Nerissa, and her sign name. Gratiano, and here's his sign name. Shylock, and his sign name. Jessica, and her sign name. Lorenzo, and his sign name. Lancelot Gobbo, and his sign name. Duke, and her sign name. Morocco, and his sign name. The Prince of Aragon, and his sign name. So now I'm going to tell you a bit about the play, and in particular about the locations of where the play is set. The first location we see is Venice. This is the sign I use for Venice, which you may recognise as the sign I used for Venice in the recent RSC Schools broadcast of Othello. The sign reflects Venice's iconic gondolas. Although, in this production, unlike in Othello, we never see those gondolas. The set used in this production is reflective. It's almost mirror-like. And it remains the same during all the scenes in the play, although it is used in different ways. For example, keep an eye out for where Jessica is positioned on the set when she talks to Lancelot Gobbo. The second location in the play is Belmont, and this is the sign that I use for Belmont. Unlike Venice, which is a port, Belmont is inland. Belmont is where Portia lives, and we hear Bassanio mention this right at the start of the play. The other location that we hear mentioned is the Rialto. Now, interestingly, the Rialto is the name of a bridge, but it is also the area where trade happens. And so this is the sign that I use for the Rialto. And the Rialto is mentioned by Shylock in the third scene of the play. Finally, although it's not a location as such, There is a section of the RSC's production where one character, Lancelot Gobbo, sits in the audience. Perhaps you could have a think about why the director has decided to have an actor sit in the audience in this way. So just before we think about what happens during the plot of The Merchant of Venice, I wanted to let you know the signs that I'll be using for the two religions that are mentioned in the play. There are a number of characters who are Jewish, and this is the sign that I'll be using to show that a character is Jewish, or to show that their religion that is being talked about is Judaism. There are also a number of characters who are Christians, and this is the sign that I'll be using. And that sign I'll use to show that their religion is Christianity, or that they themselves are a Christian. I'm now going to give a brief description of what happens in the play. Antonio agrees to lend his friend Bassanio 3,000 ducats so that he can woo a rich woman called Portia who lives in Belmont. Now, in this production, the relationship between Antonio and Bassanio is very close, perhaps even romantic. And keep an eye out for how you think this close relationship may affect how Bassanio acts later in the play. Portia is in love with Bassanio and tells Nerissa that she wants to marry him. But before he died, her father decided that she can only marry the man who passes a test. Now, the test involves each suitor choosing one of 3 caskets: a gold one, a silver one, or a lead one. And if they choose correctly, they can marry Portia. In order to help Bassanio and lend him the money he needs, Antonio has to go to Shylock to ask for a loan. Shylock doesn't like Antonio because of the way he has treated him in the past, but he agrees to lend him the money. However, the punishment for not paying back the loan will be a pound of Antonio's flesh. However, Antonio is confident he will be able to pay it back when his ships come in. Portia's suitors, Morocco and the Prince of Aragon, choose the wrong caskets in the test. But Bassanio manages to choose the right one, the lead casket. Portia and Bassanio are both really happy and they get married. Portia's lady-in-waiting, Nerissa, also marries Gratiano, and the women give their new husbands rings, which the men promise to keep. Now, Shylock's daughter, Jessica, loves Lorenzo. But Jessica is Jewish and Lorenzo is Christian, so Jessica is secretly planning to run away with Lorenzo. She dresses as a man and takes Shylock's money and her mother's ring and runs away with Lorenzo. News comes in that Antonio's ships have been lost at sea, which means he won't be able to pay his debt to Shylock. Shylock decides that Antonio has to pay his bond. He wants a pound of Antonio's flesh. Bassanio returns to Venice to help Antonio, leaving Portia and Nerissa in Belmont. But both the women decide that they want to help their husbands win the case and free Antonio, and so disguise themselves. Portia dresses as a young male lawyer called Balthazar and goes to Venice, but without Bassanio knowing. In the law court, the Duke listens to Shylock's arguments about why he should have Antonio's pound of flesh. But disguised as the lawyer Balthazar, Portia manages to argue that Shylock is entitled to the pound of flesh, but is not allowed to spill a drop of Antonio's blood, and that he can only take exactly 1 pound of flesh, no more or less, making it impossible for Shylock to take it. Portia argues that Shylock should be killed for conspiring against a Venetian. Eventually, the Duke pardons Shylock on the condition that he give over half of his wealth to Antonio and half to the state. Antonio says he will give up his half if Shylock converts from Judaism to Christianity and gives half his wealth to Jessica and Lorenzo instead. Bassanio is so grateful to Balthazar, the young male lawyer, for saving Antonio that he gives Balthazar his ring from Portia, not realising that Balthazar is Portia. Portia and Nerissa go back to Belmont, where they meet Bassanio and Gratiano. They ask the two men about their rings, which they did promise to keep forever. Eventually, the women reveal that they were Balthazar and his clerk in Venice. As the play finishes and Antonio's ships return safely, Portia and Nerissa leave with Bassanio and Gratiano, leaving Antonio alone. Meanwhile, Portia is left trying to understand why Bassanio gave away his ring and why he said he valued Antonio more than Portia. We hope that you enjoy the broadcast of The Merchant of Venice, and thank you for watching now. Bye-bye.